but I want to make sure we have time to do our notes. So, again, that optional help time is optional for a lot of you, and then some of you it's required. But that help time is, you are available to still come, so don't think you can't come see me. Yes?
You're eating no carbs.
I do.
No, but you're not allowed to have one.
Right, you're looking at case for
Okay.
When you have to say that to
Oh my gosh, you scared me, Ryan.
Okay. So, this is another way to write this, the divide by. So, it's really you're just distributing like you did over here. Now, I saw some of you guys that were doing number 7, you combined like terms up on the top, but these aren't like terms. You can't combine these together because they don't have the same variable with the same exponent.
There's 2 number 7s.
Are there?
Yeah.
Oh, there are, yeah. But we can distribute this, or distribute the division. So 18 divided by 2 would be 9. A to the third over A would just be A squared. The B would just stick around, and then the C's would cancel. And then minus, and then there.
I suppose I should answer B with the right number.
Okay.
It's okay, guys. We're just gonna get better from here.
All right. 15C. Actually, we're going to talk about those today. That's one I think that I didn't review with you guys. Which is why you've probably seen. Oh no, did we? Let's talk about it. We didn't review it.
We did like one with I in it, but we didn't like do a section about it.
Okay, well, now that I look, I don't have her. I thought I put it on today's review and I didn't. So let's talk about these. So, involving I, where did it go?
I'm so scared for the gym final.
So, in like this section here, the biggest thing to remember is that I squared equals -1. So anytime I squared comes up, you want to make it equal -1. Otherwise, you can really treat I like a variable. The issue is we can't have I in the denominator. So, that's what we need to, that's right, we do need to finish this for today. But, now I remember, it's on your other note sheet. Yes, there's the I. Yeah. So, in order to get the I out of the denominator here, I'm going to tell you just to multiply each by I. But on the top, you have to distribute. And I'll give you that hint for right now and then give you guys a little bit of time to work on it a little bit later. So try multiplying the top and bottom by I. So the reason why I didn't, that one shouldn't have been assigned for last night, sorry, because it's in chapter 5, part 2. So if you guys want to get those notes out from yesterday, the chapter 5, part 2 notes. So the notes from yesterday, we still have to do the chapter 5, part 2. So the note packet we did, or the note sheet we did last time. Yesterday.
When we were like, Mr. Dodgers, not 43, he's 32.
That was so confused.
Kinsey thought your kids were like 5 and 8 years old. Because she thought you guys were that young.
Well, it's probably because my parents got me not really that. I think that's why I got told.
My mom had me when she was 3.
My mom was in high school.
My mama said that had me when she was 29.
I don't have any issues 29 too.
My parents went for it.
Can you imagine that? I mean, so are you 16 or
I will maybe 17.
like thinking about having a baby? It's just like,
Jordan, you're gonna have a baby?
No.
no, I'm just saying that
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 would be like my mom.
situation
Well,
for
you
moms.
never know what life has for us.
I would definitely follow my mom. Probably my mom. And then
Yeah, my stepmom had an older brother at 21.
When I taught in Minneapolis, I had a lot of Hmong students, and the Hmong sect that was there, that like it's a sect. Like they have kind of almost like a tribe, kind of. It's a very unique like culture, and a lot in that area, they would marry their kids really young. So like I had high school girls that were getting married and actually would have babies in high school, but they were married, like so they were like married mothers. And here I'm student teaching and like I'm like, I have a fish, and here this girl is like doing her math homework and then she goes home to like her children. Like it was so crazy. So I just felt very like immature. Like
I have a fish.
fish. And sometimes I overfeed him or don't feed him or forget to feed him for like 2 days.
Fish are so weird.
So
They die too quickly.
yeah, it's a little bit sad. Okay. So chapter 5 part 2 was our radical section. This was probably the toughest part I think of our the exam stuff that we're going to be doing. I'm going to tell you guys that what's on here is similar to what's going to be on the exam. I'm going to kind of keep it pretty low key, I think, and pretty straightforward in terms of what I want you guys to do. So I'm not picking any of the really hard radicals to solve. So when we're looking at the solving, hopefully they're ones that I think are more manageable. So in the terms of the simplifying, kind of like a little smattering of each kind. So this one, we're multiplying two different radicals together. So anytime we're doing that, I suggest multiplying together first and kind of combining things and then seeing what we can take out. So in this case, I do 20 times 6, which is 120. I have x to what power?
X to the
Fifth. Y to the second. When we have a square root, what's the little number on the outside that we assume is there?
2.
There's like a little 2. That tells us we're looking for pairs, if you recall when we did that. So square root of 20, we're going to break up. Now, some of your calculators simplify the square root of 120 for you, and that's fine to do that. So you can do that in your calculator, and it will tell you what it breaks down to. Otherwise, if you don't know, or your calculator doesn't do that, we can break this up as, is it 4 times 30, 2 times 2, 15 times 2, 3 times 5. So I have a pair of 2's. So that means the 2 can come out. So I'm going to put that up here, because I'm running out of space down here. So the 2 comes out of the root. What's left inside is 3, 5, and 2, so 30 is actually left inside. So had you put this into your calculator, the square root of 120 simplifies to 2 root 30, I believe. So I did something wrong. All right, now we have x to the 5th power in the square root. So this is really like 5 over 2. How many times does 2 go into 5? Twice. That's how many get to come out. And what's left inside then? A 1, because it's like a remainder of 1, x to the 1st. And then the y is going to be, what's its fraction going to be?
2 over 2.
2 over 2, which 2 over 2 is just 1, so that's how many y's can come out, just a single 1. So that would be considered the new simplified version. The next one, we don't like those radicals in the denominator. So what should we do to get rid of them? Do you remember? Multiply by what? Not exactly itself. So it's going to be the opposite version. So plus the square root of 3. Whenever I do the bottom, I have to do the top as well. I just distributed that 5 in. The bottom I have to FOIL. And when I do that, the middle 2 terms should cancel out. And square root of 9 is this going to be 3. So getting rid of that radical is just multiplying by what we call the conjugate. Not that you need to know the name of that. And this last one is simplifying radicals. It's kind of, I think that these are kind of like, just so that you guys heads up on this, like I think on the test we did probably like 8 questions like these. On the exam that won't be there, kind of one of each kind. I won't try to pick the most difficult ones, try to a little smattering of each. So in letter C here, I need to make these radicals alike in order to be able to add them. I can't just add the 250 and the 54 because they're the same radical. The number underneath has to be the same as well. But since this is a 3, I have to look for triplets, groups of 3. Actually, let me just... So I'm just going to break up its 250, 25 and 10, 5 and 5, 5 and 2. So I have a group of 5s. Those are going to come out, but there's already a 4 out there. So what am I going to do with the 5 and 4? I'll multiply it. So it's going to be 20 and then cube root of 2. Because the 2 is left inside. Now 54, is at 9 and 6, I believe. And then again, I get a group of 3s, but there's nothing on the outside this time, so I'm just going to write plus 3, and then the 2 is left in. Now the radicals are alike, so now we can put them together. So now we just add their coefficients. So that would be our final version of that.
How did we get the 20 on the outside?
So the 20 came from, you notice the 4 in the front before, right? And then we pulled out the 5s because there was 3 5s in that radical. So 4 times 5. And so each of these problems, there's one similar on your review that you haven't yet done yet. So that was intentional, that I tried to make the review really similar to what we're doing here in class. So this is where the I squared equals -1. So this is what I meant to show you guys yesterday, and I guess I didn't realize it was in this section. I don't remember when we actually learned it, but it showed up here.
Last year.
Last year. The answer to everything is when we learned it was last year. All right, so in this case, I squared equals -1, but we don't like that I in the denominator. It's like having a radical in the denominator. So I want to get rid of it like I got rid of it here. So we're going to multiply by 2 minus 3i. Now, if you notice the one that you guys asked about on the review, we didn't multiply by the conjugate because it was only one term. This has 2 terms, so we have to use the conjugate in this case. And i's are okay on top. On the bottom, we want to get rid of them. Cancel, and then the fact that I squared is -1, we can use that as well. So that's going to become plus 9. And then it can't be simplified anymore, because 13 is prime, so nothing comes out of that. And I threw this next one on here because this one was a big mistake on the test that went along with this. You think you see 2 sets of parentheses, so you're so excited to FOIL. You don't have to FOIL here, Abby. We don't have to FOIL. She always wants to FOIL. FOIL? No, stop FOILing. So this one's additions. When they're not like stuck right next to each other, it's not FOIL. So this is FOIL, this one's not. This one's just combining like terms. So it's really 6 plus 4 And then negative I plus 3I is a positive 2I. And that's it.
Oh, dang.
Whoa.
boring.
So yeah, it's boring, but it's a lot easier than the alternative, which is wrong. So don't FOIL. And again, I put that one on there because I remember on the last test, a lot of people doing that wrong, just because I think we're overthinking it, and you're like, "Ugh, yikes, that can't be just it." So, love your FOIL. All right. So these last two are solving with radicals, and so with solving with radicals, we had some that were like similar like this, pretty simple like this, and then we had some that were those really big ones where you're foiling with radicals. I'm not going to put the big crazy ones on there. This is more similar what we're going to be doing. So we want to isolate the radical so we can square each side. And when I square a radical, it just cancels it. The only thing you have to remember with this is we have to check our solutions. There could be extraneous solutions.
Yeah.
So we find out 10 would be B in this case. And so 10 minus 1 is 9, square root of 9 is 3. So that one works fine. Now, the 1/2 power is really the same as what? Square root. So like this is really the same thing as this. So to undo 1/2 power, we're just going to square each side. Now this one's a little bit more complicated because I square this left side and it's just 20 minus r. When I square the right side, it's just squared. And so now we have to deal with a variable being squared. Anytime you see a variable being squared, you should be thinking quadratics. That we can solve quadratics by moving everything to one side and hopefully factoring. So I'm going to move everything over by the r squared. I know that's not the simplest way, but it ends up helping in the long run. So move that 20 over. So now on this right side of the equation, I'm going to be able to factor this. I want to multiply to get r squared. So I know it's r times r. I want to multiply to get negative 20, but add to give me 1. Yep,
Minus 4 and plus 5.
yeah, minus 4 plus 5 are two factors.
Oh,
So you move those over, so I get 4, and I also get a negative 5. This would be a great example of one that I probably want to check to make sure nothing kind of crazy happened. And I actually think we end up throwing out the negative 5. So when I do this, 20 minus 4 is 16, square root of 16 is 4. 20 minus a negative 5 is a negative, is 25. When I take the square root, it shouldn't be negative because we assume it's a positive square root. So we will cross that one out. A little bit tricky there.
If you don't put a line through it, you're gonna get points.
Which one? The beginning. The 1/2 power is the same thing as the square root.
Government, equaling, desktop, parks,
So
and personal.
we just, like that's just a factoring anything. Those two are interchangeable.
Yesterday was bad.
Okay, so guys, what we are gonna do, so now you should be, so I actually, why don't you guys go to that one you asked about? So why don't you go to 15C on your homework packet? So 15C, why don't you guys try that one and see how that goes? And I'm gonna pass out our next note sheet, but we will have a break here in a minute. 15C on our homework. Well, no, they had questions on it. It's like a 1 in front of the B, that's fine, yeah. So then you move all of these to the bottoms, they're all negatives, they all be on the bottom of the E.
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant when you said that.
Oh, you.
I was like, he does not look like Kenzie's brother. We're doing more notes?
We didn't ever do chapter 9. I told you guys that
No, we don't
yesterday.
do that. Is that what I just did the retake on? I should be a pro
Yeah.
at this.
We will after we go over this question. All right. So did 15C go better then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So does it make sense if we only multiply by I rather than the conjugate? There's only one term. So if I multiply by I know I is -1, or I squared is -1. So I'm basically making that bottom no longer an I. So this becomes like 4I minus 5I squared all over 2I squared. And then anywhere I see I squared, I'm going to make that -1. And you can just leave it with a negative on the bottom. Otherwise, if for whatever reason you multiply by like a -2I or something like that and it ends up on the positive, you could also have it written this way. Okay. So I do have another note sheet for you guys because we never got to chapter 9. So what this is it's supposed to be the front side that we'll kind of go over some questions together. This is our most recent chapter. And then the back side is supposed to be like kind of an addition to our homework, just more practice for you guys. So it's kind of a review and homework in one. So, so for tomorrow, what you guys have to finish is the rest of the packet, which is only like 6 questions, I think, right?
Yeah.
6 like problems. And then also the back side of this note sheet. So, do you want to take more notes or take a break?
Right.
Okay. All right, and just real quick, guys. So